Click, click, click. Hey, we're live.
So there I was, naked as a jaybird, sitting behind lanes 1 and 2, my head in my hands, staring out into space, because I had no idea what was going on. All I knew is that I was in 11th and that I was in 35th, and it was over like that. And it took about 3 minutes of just sitting there, staring out at at the pins on lane 2. And then a weird thing happened. I was kind of okay. Like I really waited to be angry, right? I shot 138 to give my playoff spot away. And I expected to be furious. I expected to go back to the hotel room and trash it. And probably 5 years ago, I would have. An hour went by, no anger. 6 hours went by, a day went by. I flew home. I felt fine. And I just was ready to, not even to figure out what the hell happened, but to figure out, like, what am I going to need to do to prepare to make sure that this doesn't happen next time? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about my collapse at the Body Quest Challenge a week ago tomorrow. And our special guest is someone who had a front row seat for it, Meagan Gallicano, who was scoring for us at the time because the scoring systems on lane 1 and lane 2 at St. Pat's were not working for that game. And
well, she would have had a lot of scoring to do with your 138. I'm sorry to say.
It was a lot of. I'm guessing it was a lot of unusual arithmetic, not a lot of adding by 15 and 45.
If anything, it was probably the easiest math I've ever done. So.
Oh, you didn't have to count very high, exactly.
It wasn't.
But some of the most disappointing. So we have the regular crew here: Danny Vogler, Lyle Dolph. We're here with Meagan Gallicano, and I have one simple question to ask Meagan. Meagan, what the fuck did I do? What was it like for you to have to see that?
The short answer of what the fuck did you do was not a lot of good things. There weren't very many good things, but as we have talked about in many sessions together, when it comes to reflection, like, it's really important to look for those good things, right? And I think you started off really well by saying, I wasn't angry. I was calm. I didn't lose my shit, which, a lot of people do.
Yeah,
I've done before. I'm sure everyone on the podcast has done before.
It's like golf, right? It's like golf. You're just divoting, your ball's going nowhere, you're playing army golf, left, right, and then all of a sudden, you hit a great shot. I want to get into that in a bit, but
yeah, because the only thing that's worse than shooting 138 to give away your playoff spot is to shoot 138 to give away your playoff spot with a strike. I couldn't even have the decency to throw 10 open frames to get to 138. I had to put a strike in there somewhere. And that tricked me because that made me think that the nightmare was over, and it was just beginning. And that's really the weird thing, that I'm just okay with it. I kept looking for, how did I feel about this? And the only word that kept coming up was disappointed. But that was it. Nothing worse. Not angry, not despondent. I didn't have the dark thoughts like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm wasting my time, that I probably would have had 3 or 4 years ago if this had happened. And instead it was just, wow, that's almost impressive how bad that was. 9 open frames and a strike in 6.
And I think disappointment is something that's really important to recognize as well, because if you're not feeling that disappointment from struggling, from not performing, from not, executing to your ability, then why are you here? Right?
Right.
We're disappointed because, we have high expectations from ourselves. We want to perform well. And it's such a fine balance, because, being angry and pissy about it is not going to solve anything. But pretending like it was nothing is also not solving anything, right?
Right.
So
and for sure, believe me,
you want to recognize those disappointments.
Yeah. I knew something happened.
Yeah.
And that was, like I said, that first 3 minutes was just like shock.
We move forward.
Yeah, that first 3 minutes after it was over was just shock. I just sat there. I mean, I couldn't move. I didn't know what happened. But like I said, I waited for the eruption. It never came. I waited for the darkness. It never came. My first thought was, wow. And my second thought was, okay, let's get to work. Like, let's figure out what I need to do to prepare to
Growth, my
not
friend.
let that happen again.
Growth.
Talk us through that game there, JB.
Okay, so let's set the stage. I had started, so this is my second qualifying shift on Saturday. Friday, remember that these qualifying shifts are 6 games instead of 8, so it goes over a little quicker. Friday, I had an 800 triple to start and then shot 599 for the back 3 and missed the cut. And that's kind of normal for me. Like I had a couple of sets in TPC where I shot like 1350 or 1400 for the first 5 and then 600, 650 for the last 3 not to make it. So that I kind of got used to that. And I figured with 6 games, it might feel similar. So the first 3 were good, the second 3 were bad, and it added up to nothing. But then on Saturday, I was like 827 for the first 3. I was in 3rd place. And I thought, oh, this is cool. And then the 5th game, I shot, I think, 282 to get to 1335. And I was in 11th. I averaged 267 for 5 games. And all I remember thinking was, this can't be that hard. Like 240 and I'm in there easy. 210 is probably okay. And I might be able to get away with less. And I was starting to think about, if I get hot, maybe I'm going to be able to finish first overall. I know that Shane Chafe and Brad Glynn were like really seriously trying to make sure that the one was higher than the other. And I thought, wouldn't it be hilarious if I could finish ahead of both of them and laugh at them both? I thought that would be great. And then I got over to lanes 1 and 2. I did everything the same that I'd done all day. I put my balls down. I put the water bottle down in the same place, my shoe brush in the same place, my towels in the same place. Everything felt fine. And I threw the first ball and I popped the left 3 pin and kind of chuckled and thought, oh, well, this is a little bit of nerves, whatever. I'm going to make a cut, but I'm going to have some nerves first. So that's kind of normal. Open frame, no big deal. Go to the next one. Frame 2, I popped the left 3 pin almost in exactly the same spot. Chuckle again. What are you going to do? Maybe I got to breathe more. Maybe I got to relax more. I'm not sure what it is. Another open frame. And then the 3rd frame, I popped the right 3 pin. And I remember distinctly saying out loud as I picked up my ball for the second shot, this is becoming a habit. And I think that might have been the beginning of the end right there. So I ended up going 5 open frames in the first 5, and I didn't hit the middle on any 5. I'm pretty sure I didn't hit the middle on any of those 5. And so I couldn't see the score. Right. I couldn't see the score. So I figured based on, missing all 5 frames, 5 open frames and not cleaning it up, I'm like best case 65, probably 60 through 5. No big deal. 530s erases this, I'll be fine. And then I shoot a strike in 6, and I seem to recall it was the normal left pocket shot that had been working for me the whole day, and big sigh of relief. Go up in 7, miss to the left, make the same adjustment I'd made all day, and then miss left on the spare opportunity by a lot. Like, 20 on the strike. That's awesome. I'm in trouble. I don't even remember what happened on the 3rd ball, but I'm thinking, great, I'm like 90-ish through 7. This is getting out of hand. But again, 30, 30, 30, I get to 180, and I think that's enough. And spoiler, that would have been enough. But I think I fell asleep. Punched in 8, chopped in 9, and then missed the 3 pin on the spare. And then I'm like, I don't know if 45 is enough. It might be. It turns out it wasn't. I would have missed. If I got 45 in the 10th, I would have missed by like 9. And then maybe I would have trashed the hotel room. I'm not sure. But then I punched on the first ball in 10. And then I had to laugh.
You knew.
I had to laugh. At that point, it was definitely certain. And I knew that I could tell that was all tension. That was all just body got tense. I finally got accurate again, but I'm tense. I'm not finishing the shot, whatever it was. And I didn't realize it at the time that was 9 open frames and a strike. And so then I thought, oh shit, that's like 155. And then I went back and tentatively looked at the score sheet. And when I saw 138, no word of a lie, I saw 138 and I thought, oh, that must be in the 9th. Wait, what? And about the only thing that made me not happy's not the right word, but the one thing that kind of cushioned the blow was when I found out that Melissa Mannard got the 25th spot. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to fuck up, I'm glad she was the beneficiary.
Yes.
Like, that's somebody that I'm very happy to take the 25th spot. That was her first, was that her first cut in NBT? Right. So, like, I can't complain.
Cut ever.
First cut ever. Okay. I didn't know that was her first cut in anything.
Cut ever.
Yeah. So, like, couldn't happen to a nicer person. But that's what it was. And I remember distinctly I think after the punch in 8, I just started pacing. So I said, I got to get the fuck out of here. I started pacing. Mm-hmm. But when I was pacing, I was just pacing. Like, I wasn't getting any calmer. I wasn't getting any better focus. I wasn't feeling any better. I was just like pacing to wait my turn to go fuck up again. And that's what it felt like. That was that sleepwalking feeling. So then it was over, and then I wasn't quite ready to laugh, but I laughed pretty soon after. And I mean, what are you going to do?
That's a journey. And we were talking just before we went live here. Second week of averages, we do 3 weeks averages. Bradford Bowl shot a 537. It's probably my lowest triple ever. And I thought to myself, what happened? Because I mean, I wasn't in a scenario like yourself to have to control the level of emotion at that level. However, from a standard league night, average night, everybody thought I was sandbagging. I wasn't, for the record. Anyway.
Right.
The question that goes through my mind is, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And to your point, JB, you're picking 3 pins left to right. When you're on, you're punching it, and something's not there. And I think for me, again, it's different for everyone. I think I hit a point where, okay, I'm getting tense. I need to just forget everything that just happened to pretend I'm on a 3-bagger right now.
Yeah. Slow
Slow it down, breathe, all those things that we've all been told. And there were a lot. It was our second league night. It was great. Our first league night was a little more intense because we're trying to figure things out. I bowled better that night, so it has nothing to do with what's going on in your head and all these things. So the questions I've got for you are, how do you prevent breaking a ball return in your leg in that moment?
An awful lot of metta meditation over the last 6 or 7 years has helped a lot. That's that loving kindness meditation. That's where you sit there and you bring someone to mind. It could be yourself, it can be somebody else, and you repeat phrases. The 4 that I use are, so if I'm doing it for myself, I would say, may I be well, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. And the idea there is just to find compassion for yourself, for others. It's really good for working through interactions with difficult people, or those people who kind of get in your way, who bug you, it allows you to find compassion for them. Sometimes it takes a very long time. There's an old saying that an hour of loving kindness for a difficult person is like 100 hours of any other kind of meditation. And a lot of us forget to do that for ourselves. Because in that moment, this really is the big reason why I don't punch the ball return or punch the wall. I had a couple of moments
Destroy
where
hotel rooms.
I had a couple of moments. I had one moment where I gave the wall a love tap because we were on lane 1, so I happened to finish near the wall. So I gave
I've
the wall
apologized to a
a
few
little
walls
love
in my
tap.
lifetime. I'm sorry for what happened last frame. Give them a little.
But I mean, literally just like,
rub.
But no, I mean, that really is what it has been for me. I was a hothead as a kid. I'm sure I was very difficult to be around. It came out a lot when I bowled. It was one of the things that I spent years. When I came back to competitive bowling 10 years ago, one of the things that I really wanted to do was eliminate that from my game.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really calm.
Mm-hmm.
And at times I get numb and I sleepwalk. And I think that was the feeling that I had, especially when I started pacing in after that 8th frame. I didn't recognize it at the time, but looking back even 30 minutes later, it was really obvious. I started sleepwalking. So, I mean, on the one hand, I've been able to tame the hothead asshole who thinks he's better than he is. But on the other hand, I'm now susceptible to sort of losing the sharpness, losing the edge, losing the focus. And that's something that I'm starting to bring back, with Meagan's help and with the help of some other folks that I'm working with. To find another gear in those moments. And I actually had a coaching session with a non-bowling person earlier today, and they helped me see, maybe try a different routine when you're moving into that situation where it's the last game and you need to hang on to a good position. Our first instinct is to do what got us there because it's been working. But if that starts failing, maybe there's another gear, maybe there's another routine, maybe there's something else that I can do that can be something to draw from. And so I'm going to experiment with that. I've got my notes here, and I'll experiment with that next time. And the thing that I kind of came to was, now's the time for a little bit more. Now's the time for a little bit more focus, a little bit more attention on breathing, a little bit more like dig down, do even more of the good stuff. Not but more of the good stuff.
And I think an inspiration to that was Brad Glenn's game as 450 and how his composure, and now I understand we're going from one level to another. But again, your emotions are starting to take over your body and you've got to start figuring things out.
Yeah.
One way or the other. And with experience comes that level of composure. But also, you know that your routine, your composure, and everything is going to affect your shot. And it has to be bang on. And whether you're going on that 12th strike or you're in the 10th, you're like, I want to hit. Or you're in the 5th and you haven't marked and you've got to make a change. It's a similar takeover of emotions that's going to change your body and your shot.
Right.
And
in that moment, I think I desperately tried to stick with
Meagan, please.
Yeah,
love to hear that.
Gonna get science with y'all. I think my camera's on a bit of a delay because I'm catching up a little bit behind everything, but I'm gonna do my best. Even just listening to you, JB, here's where there's a little tiny bit of actual neuroscience involved. We'll take you back to a little bit of high school biology here. The amygdala is a little tiny component in your brain, and it's actually its main purpose is your fight, flight, and freeze response. Yeah. Right? It's what's sending off signals, trying to warn you of any kind of outside danger, anything like that. And it's designed to keep us safe. So I know JB and I have talked many, many times when it comes to fear in bowling. The difference between throwing a strike for that 450 or throwing a strike in practice is fundamentally the same. The reason that it's different is because our perception of it is markedly different. The perception of it is, what are all of these things that could happen if I miss this shot? What are all of these things in the future? What? So the amygdala, when it perceives these kinds of stressors, it starts releasing a ton of different hormones into your body. That's why you start feeling the anxiousness. You start feeling the sweats. Why you start breathing faster. Why you can't focus.
This is why I'm so good at practice.
It is literally trying to warn you, holy shit, there's something that is going wrong. I'm at risk. What is happening? Right? And traditionally, you'll experience one of three things. You will fight, you will take flight, or you will freeze. And JB, that was the typical freeze.
I froze.
Textbook freeze. Everything is lost.
Yeah.
That amygdala has gone into overdrive. It is no longer allowed to, it's not allowing your body to function properly. Right? This is why mental training is so important in so many different ways, because something as simple as a grounding technique to bring you back to the present is literally all you need. My personal favorite is breathing. Because
talk about that, Meagan. I'm curious because breathing is a big topic. Right? How do you? What's your method on breathing?
So first of all, anyone who's ever seen me bowl, there is an exaggerated breath, over the top, right before I bowl, every single time. Even you'll see, it's a whole body breath.
The shoulders are very yeah.
I feel better just doing that right now.
Everything is right. And do you want to know why you feel better?
Tell me why.
A little bit more biology for you, friends.
I have no clue.
A little bit more biology for you. The reason that breathing is so important in these kinds of situations, one, is it's grounding us. The most fundamental need of our human existence is oxygen. You need to breathe. Without it, we don't survive, right? You were dead faster than anything without the breath, right? It's a fundamental human need. Cool. When we get anxious, when we get worked up, when we're, exerting, we take such shallow breaths. So we're not actually fulfilling our full lung capacity and allowing our tissues to have the oxygen that it needs. So that's one. Two, as we discussed, when that amygdala is doing its funny little let's fuck you up routine, what breathing actually does, specifically a prolonged exhale. This is why you see those breathe in, hold, long exhale. What it's actually doing is it's stimulating your vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve is designed to literally bring down that rest and digest and amplify that feeling. So instead of having all of those stress hormones going nuts, it brings us back to rest. It lowers our blood pressure. It decreases our heart rate. It's magic, the power of the breath. So it's my personal favorite when it comes to a grounding technique, but it's so important to practice it in everyday life. Everyday life, because just like when you're going bowling, the first time you went bowling, you weren't very good at it. More practice, the better you get. The first time you go to the gym, can't pick up very much weight. But the more that you train, the stronger you get, the more that you can pick up. The more that you practice these kinds of techniques, at the beginning, it feels silly as hell, right? That breathe in, hold it, exhale. You're like, what is going on? This is awkward. This doesn't feel right. It's not natural. But the more that you do it, it's strengthening those muscles and strengthening that memory, right? So when we get into those situations where, oh shit, I've just punched my third 3-pin in a row, things are starting to kind of fall off the rails here. We start feeling those anxious feelings. We start getting in our brain. It's nice and easy to say, oh, don't overthink. And if I could just say, don't overthink, yes, that's probably the answer for all of us. But our brain just does it. So what we need to do is implement techniques, grounding techniques, to bring us back to the present. Because here's a little tidbit for y'all. Fear cannot exist in the present. Think about that for just a second.
Well, you got to be scared about something. It has to happen first.
Right? Exactly. Fear is something that is, even if it's a minute away, a second away, it is not in the actual present. Right? So if we are fearful and throwing with fear, we are living somewhere in the future. We need to bring ourselves back to the present. And my ultimate coaching philosophy is throwing with confidence and not with fear.
It's a great tip.
And so in those moments for me, I think I ended up trying to cling to the routines that had been helping me the whole day. But the difference was I was just going through the motions, hoping somehow that they would work. And I thought I actually was breathing pretty well. And I thought I was doing those things. But what I wasn't doing, like, especially when I went and paced, like I said, all I did was escape from the situation. What I didn't do during that pacing was the bringing the focus back, was the positive stuff. The I'm here, I'm safe, I think I actually was breathing pretty well, probably not bad. But it wasn't with intention. It wasn't with conviction. It was still with some kind of subconscious fear. At least that's what I think happened. And
Absolutely. Like even just in your
that's
very
a thing to
brief
practice next.
explanation.
So Meagan,
Absolutely.
I like to hide fear.
In
I
that
like to
brief
hide it.
explanation you were just saying, what ends up sorry, I keep hearing
Sorry, there's
like
a delay.
I'm still on this
I can feel the 5-second
delay,
delay.
so
That's
I'm, like,
okay.
talking.
Please go ahead. When there's dead air, I'll talk about fear for a sec.
No, you're absolutely right. The biggest thing, especially when we're getting in those, moments where, holy shit, what happens if I miss this shot? Oh my God, if I throw this, I make the cut. And oh my God, imagine me winning. Like our brain does that all the time. All the time. It's unbelievable some of the things that'll pass through your brain, right? It's doing so many things all at once. But when it's doing all of those things, we're not able to actually execute properly. It's the same thing that I teach when I'm coaching kids. Draw the 6 in the air and then try and move your foot the opposite direction at the same time, right? Like it's so hard to do multiple things at the same time. So when we start having our mind drift, finding a grounding technique that works for you. I know for me, breathing is a really big one. I'm also a really big fan of something called progressive muscle relaxation. When I teach other grounding techniques, it could be something as simple as grounding in your posture, grounding in, those verbal cues. But finding a grounding technique that works for you to bring you back to the present, because that's the only way that we can actually throw with confidence and not with fear. But we need to be able to recognize those moments, have those techniques and those tools available to us, and then bring them and implement them in those moments.
And the funny thing is, I don't remember having those conscious thoughts of like, oh my God, how great is it going to be if I between games, yes. As I was walking over there before game 6, I was like, oh, great. All I have to do is shoot 240 and I'm in for sure. Less is probably good enough. Just keep doing what you're doing. Once that game started, I do not remember having a conscious thought of what happens if I miss or any of those things that would normally come in. And what I've learned, at least what I'm inferring, is that's not enough. It's not enough to not notice those conscious thoughts, because even if the thoughts are not conscious, even if they're not reaching here, they're here or they're here, they're somewhere. And I might as well just assume they're there until I've gone through that a few more times, until I've had more of that experience of being in that position, because it's still new to me. Being that being in the cut until the last game has only happened to me twice. So I don't have enough experience to just let that roll off my back. So even if I don't consciously feel like tension or that anticipation or the expectations rising or the dark thoughts, my subconscious mind is probably doing it, and it's gonna show up in my body, and it's gonna be subtle, and I'm not gonna notice it unless I just assume it's there. And I think that's
And
going
then
to be
what
part of my
happens
prep
is that
going forward.
amygdala goes into overdrive. It implements
Right.
that fight, flight, or in your case, the freeze response. And it's the classic deer in the headlights, right? I can see danger is right there, but I can't do anything. I can't think. I
Right.
can't
Oh,
see.
yeah.
I can't perform. And that could even be something that is really important for you to hold on to, right? Because you're like, okay, when I'm experiencing those things, when I'm feeling that I'm out in la la land, okay, I'm recognizing that this is a stress response, implement my grounding techniques, bring myself back to the present, and kind of like implement, like that's why I was talking about that breathing earlier. We want to bring down those stress hormones, put into practice that rest and digest. Like it all comes down to biology in those moments, right? And it's so funny how something as simple as the breath can literally alter hormones, alter your heart rate, alter your blood pressure. So I think that's something that is really, really important for you to be able to recognize, right?
Yep, that's the next step. Danny, you wanted to say something about fear.
I did. I was
You remember
lost
what it
in
was?
the moments of everything we're talking about, which is just
All
I'm
good.
taking notes. The biggest note here is that seriously, throw with confidence, not with fear. And I want to talk
Right.
about confidence because confidence applies to everything you do.
Yeah.
Not
I
just
might
in
have to
what,
trademark
not
that
just in bowling.
actually.
That it's patent pending. There it is. For the record, what's the date?
Yeah. Well,
I
that's the strap line for your coaching school. Throw with confidence.
Right.
love that. Love it.
Free.
You have
There
to
you
tell
go.
yourself you can do it before you can do it,
Hmm.
right? And yeah, that's tough. That's tough. And to a lot of younger folks that are stepping up on the big stage even today, that is a challenge without any experience, and also you're immersing yourself in a new situation that you've never been in before, and that's just adding to the amygdala and the hormones.
Amygdala. Yeah,
Yes.
you got
Amygdala.
it.
So anyway, yeah, it's something that doesn't come overnight, and it comes with practice, and it comes with thought, it comes with confidence, it comes with a lot of control, self-control, and thought. And again, I bring back that golfing scenario. I've been golfing and bowling for 30 years, and I started them at the same time. I wanted to break my clubs more than I wanted to throw a bowling ball into someone's face or wall.
Mhm.
Not face. It's a personal thing with the lanes. Let's make that clear. The wall, the thing, the whatever. And you just have to control that. And whether you're going into a first tournament for the first time, I've been there in a 10-pin tournament where it was step ladder. I played like 20 games in a day, and it just kept going, going, going. And it got to a point where my entire body was numb, and I had no idea what was going on. I just kept throwing the ball, and I didn't. It hits a point where when you're on the big stage a couple times, you do lose all feeling in your body, and things change. Like your endorphins kick up. So now I'm going to be able to throw the ball an extra 20 kilometers an hour. How cool is that? But you got to hold that back,
Right.
and you got to do that same routine. And Meagan, your tips on the breathing and all those things, like I'm taking note. I'm going to try I'm going to try this stuff. Because we all have more to improve and more to learn and
Oh, honey, we
rock
could
and
be
roll.
here all night and I could talk hours around my system. I don't even know what to call it, my trademark,
Not
whatever. I could talk for
not an
hours.
exaggeration. Not an exaggeration. We could and we have and we will again.
You have that absolutely correct.
There you go.
But
So
it's
Lyle,
true,
I gotta.
like, it's so important to when you're talking about with confidence. It's easy to say throw with confidence and not with fear. That's great. But confidence comes obviously from experience. That's one form of confidence. But confidence in your actual execution is so, so key. I've talked to JB about this many times before. I've talked to many other people that I work with. We want to create an almost a library to access when it comes to what feels right, what feels good, what is a good shot, how do I execute those good shots. So every time that I am bowling, whether it be practice, whatever it may be, if it is a good shot, I literally say out loud, that was a good shot. It is making that connection and cementing the fact that
He's gonna
literally
live. I felt the power. I felt the power.
Cementing
I love it.
those
Love
feelings. It's cementing that was a good shot. I know what that shot feels like.
Yeah.
So when I'm going up in the 10th frame to win a tournament, when I have to throw this to win a championship, when I have to throw whatever it is, I'm not, oh my God, can I throw this? I know what it feels like to throw that great shot, right? I've developed that library, that place that I can access that is like, here is my collection of great shots, right? I know what this is like. I know how to do it, right?
Mhm.
So when you combine all of those things, when you're removing that fear and you're throwing with confidence, you're present, you're focusing on the task at hand. It is as simple as throwing a strike in practice, right? It is exactly the same as throwing it on that big stage, right? It's always a trick question when I ask everyone, I'm like, what's the difference? They say, oh, it's warmer, there's more people. Trick question. It is always exactly the same, the exact same thing. We just perceive it to be something entirely different, right? So when you're going up there, you focus on, this is my job. I trust that I know what I'm doing. And all I have to focus on is this in this present moment. I've grounded myself. I have myself ready and primed to perform. And I do it every single time. It's this loop, this constant loop, right?
I've been
You
hearing
have
that
that
confidence for.
routine.
Oh,
I mean, JB knows all about my. You
sorry,
know all
I
about
was
my
just going to
loop,
put in there
that's
that
for sure. And it's a
yes,
constant loop.
yeah. People have been telling me about confidence for a long time. I've been wandering the countryside trying to figure out where, like, is there confidence in this tree? Is it in that tree? Where is it? Where do I find it? And finally, like 2 years ago, I read a definition of confidence that I actually found helpful for the first time. And Meagan just almost gave it verbatim 30 seconds ago. That confidence is your belief that what you do impacts the outcome. So, in other words, a lack of confidence is this sort of fatalistic, I'm screwed no matter what, or whatever happens, happens, or I can't control anything, or I can't influence anything. And confidence is merely like, it's not about walking in there, in the Taylor Michelle style of, I'm going to bury everyone and their families. It doesn't have to be that, although that seems to work for him. But it is a firm, unwavering faith in your ability to influence the outcome. That what I do matters. That the outcome is not just about random chance. It's not just about whatever happens, but that I make the outcome happen, whatever it is.
That happened.
And I actually found that
You
helpful. That
absolutely
made
nailed that,
confidence sound
because
like something I could work
focus
towards.
so much on what other people are trying to do. Oh my gosh, if so and so does this, if they throw a strike, if they miss, we're focusing on the wrong things, right? That is not confidence. You're worrying about things that are out of your control.
I often
Confidence is
was,
exactly what you just said. I am confident in my ability, right? When I go into a tournament, I don't necessarily think that I'm better than everybody else and that I'm going to bury everybody. Even though it is a similar feeling, I am confident in my abilities and I know what I can do. And when I perform the way that I'm capable of performing, I traditionally find success. I finish high in standings, I win tournaments, things like that, because I am confident in my execution, not what everybody else does or can I beat so and so. When I am confident in what I can do and my abilities, then I'm not worrying about all of these external forces and things that are completely out of my control, which is something that is so interesting in bowling, because there are a lot of other sports in which you can kind of control how games progress. Bowling is a very, very unique sport in that you have no control over anything else. There is no defense. It does not exist. So if we're focusing on all those things, we're utilizing all of our energy and our thought processes on things that are pointless. Like, we can't control what someone else is doing, right? We're putting all of that confidence inward and in our abilities and our execution.
I think what's helped me with confidence is the word lucky. And oftentimes I would tell myself growing up, this happened because I got lucky. Or this happened because I'm a typical Canadian, I'm sorry about that. Sorry, I got lucky. All these things, right? And that's just who I am. And fingers crossed. Hopefully, another word. All these things. that is just in my Canadian blood. I'll never be able to tell somebody no. I'll say I'll get back to you later, right? And at one point in my life, my mom said, "Dan, this didn't happen because you were lucky. This happened because you made it happen," and that really helped my confidence. So I've been working on that to okay, maybe I wasn't as lucky, but again, it's just the way that I've kind of used a tool to. There's a fine line between luck and no, you actually did it, or whatever you want to say.
The better I am, the luckier
Well,
I
the thing
get.
they
Right?
always say is you've got to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky.
You got it.
Exactly.
That's half true. But in order to get lucky, you actually have to be good, right? You have to be able to execute appropriately, to be able to get those breaks, to get, those corner pins to fall. And that is not just chance, right? You are executing, even if it's not perfection, you are executing in a way that it is still enough to get results, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Meagan brought that point up in that match, the 5PL match between Rock and Rollers and Next Gen from last November. Find the video on YouTube, channel 260 Bowler. When Katie Wells had a couple of like late falling corners for strikes, and Meagan piped right up and said, she gets good stuff on the ball. This happened to her in her perfect game. She thought she totally missed the 12th ball, but she cranks the ball so much that it came back and she carried. I mean, it's an ugly strike, but it was beautiful because it's not luck. She threw a really good ball that just happened to be in the right place. So, or in just enough the right place. And so it's not luck, right? When that late corner falls, it has more to do with the fingers you put on the ball than whatever luck you had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pity that Lyle has had to leave, because I was about to ask him, when we were here in June, we saw him, perform really well. And I was curious to see if there were some collapses in his past that, before that. But since he had to duck out, I'll ask Meagan. So, do you have a collapse story? Has this happened to you?
I feel like every single person has to have at least one collapse story.
Well, I'm hoping.
My most recent, actually, I have worked a lot on my mental game. It's my strongest. I get my strongest strength. I guess it's the best thing that I have in my toolbox. But just like, regular training at the gym, you need to be regularly training that mind. And just like anybody else, I fall victim to those moments too. I was at the NBT event this past, was it April? Oh my gosh, April. I'm terrible.
Would have been April. Yeah.
And yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it was April. I had just won the NBT event, literally the event before that. Won the whole thing. And I went in, practicing my regular mental prep, my whole circle, working through executing that shot. And I bowled a shift and I started like a 900 triple, maybe just over, just under. So if I throw basically anything on the back half, I've made this putt. And I remember we had a bit of a delay waiting for a lane that had been having some issues. And I went up in the very first ball in game 4 and I threw the ball and it was so uncomfortable. I felt so much pain in that one ball that was all I could think about. That was it. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to bowl anymore. How am I supposed to do this? I can't perform like this. And I proceeded to then throw the ball down this massive hole twice. So I'm sitting there and normally I shake it off. I'm like, okay, it was one bad frame. I get back to my execution and I could not shake it. And I could feel this bubbling sensation in my chest. I could feel all of this heat rushing. I could feel like I couldn't even focus. And there was a few times that a couple of my friends even looked at me and they were like, are you okay? Like, is there something wrong? And, typically, oh no, I'm totally fine. Everything's good. But I could feel this anxiety deep in the pit of my soul that was like, you can't bowl like this. How are you supposed to bowl like this? This is not happening. You can't do this. Like, oh, see, there was a bad shot. There you go. And I proceeded to shoot. Right. I want to say a 570 triple, and I missed the cut by like 5.
And what you described right there is a perfect example of what happens, because as soon as you started, so I was saying, as soon as you started thinking that way, your brain started looking for evidence that you were in serious trouble, right? As soon as you started saying, "Oh no, I'm in trouble," then it was not. Then it just became not even necessarily a self-fulfilling prophecy, but more like everywhere you looked, it kept getting worse because you were primed to see it getting worse.
Absolutely. I was in an emotional state that was not allowing me to properly process what was actually happening. It's the same thing when you're experiencing extreme bouts of anger. Why is it so much harder to do an everyday task that you're so good at doing, right? It's because you're not able to put all of those motor skills into effect, right? Your brain is working so hard and is being so overwhelmed with all of these hormones and emotions that you can't actually process what is happening, or it's so much slower to process. It's like when you have big applications running on your computer, everything else is so slow because so much is being used to run that, right? And I say that all the time, and why it's so important to be able to recognize those moments and bring yourself back, clear up a little space on the computer. You would know this better than I do, JB. But it's so important to recognize that, because it can so quickly spiral out of control. And I remember going out to my car and I was still so amped up and I was like, I can't believe what just happened. What is going on? And for the first time in my entire life, I locked my keys in my trunk.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I remember sitting there feeling like, what the actual fuck is happening in my brain right now? What is going on? Like, this is what? And I remember on the drive home, after I had that all sorted out, there was a lot of negative self-talk. Why do you even bother doing this? Like, you literally were doing just fine, and this turned into an absolute disaster. What is even happening? And the second I was able to relax, be in that more neutral emotional state, I reflected back on it and was like, you know what? It was something as simple as this tiny little trigger that kind of set off that amygdala going off in that stress response. And every single thing that I was feeling, if you literally Google stress response, those will be the top things that pop up, right? But I didn't recognize that in the moment. I didn't bring myself back to the present, and I let everything fall apart. But the reality is, no, I'm not the shits at bowling. No, it's not that I should give it up. I just won an event like a few months ago. I proceeded to go away to nationals and bowl absolutely phenomenal. It's not that I can't perform. It's that negative self-talk that perpetuates itself and exists in those emotional moments, right? But in order to be able to move on from those poor performances, we need to have that little moment of reflection, realize, this is something as basic as human physiology. What can we do to implement strategies for the next time that it happens? Because there will be a next time, and move forward. Because sitting and dwelling on it is going to do us absolutely no good.
And I really want to emphasize that I didn't have those thoughts, and yet I still have the same underlying problem. I didn't have the conscious panic. I didn't have the like serious negative self-talk after it was all over. Like, after that 3 minutes of just disbelief dissipated, I was just determined to figure out what to do next time so that I was better prepared. Even if you by chance are in that good a headspace, that alone is not enough. So there's a thing that we talk about in managing risk where we talk about it's not enough just to try to forecast what might go wrong. You want to figure out what they call indicators, right? An indicator is a thing that happens that is a sign that that risk that you are worried about is about to become a problem. And we need more indicators. We need to be able to notice them more. We need to be primed to look for them and to notice them when they're happening. So for me, for example, within the last few months or so, I've noticed a pattern where when that freeze happens, one of the things that I start to do is my feet just go too fast. It's almost like the way I've explained it to myself is I'm in such a rush to go throw a better shot that I just speed up, and it's not a lot. It's maybe 10%, but it's enough that then my timing is way off and I'm spraying the ball everywhere and nothing feels the same. And I have at first it was, what the fuck? And then it was, hey, maybe I'm going too fast. And then a couple of experiments. Oh, it seems like it is a problem that I'm going too fast. And just that mere awareness was enough for me to now prime my brain to start looking for it. And now, when I'm in that situation and I've sprayed 2 or 3 shots, I already have that thought in my mind that says, hey, you're probably going too fast. Whatever else is going on, I'll bet you're going too fast. And then I can at least be aware of that. And that was just formulating a theory, testing it out, and then having something to look for. And the moment that I had that sort of plausible theory of what was going on, my mind started looking for it, which increased the chance that I would notice it. And what I get from this experience last week is I need a new indicator for this freeze moment, for this sleepwalking. And because, it happened plain as day. And for 40 minutes, I didn't notice it. It didn't clue into me until 4 hours after it happened. So I woke up at 2:30 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. And let's be frank, I didn't sleep. I passed out from bourbon, and then I woke up at 2:30 in the morning. Angel's Envy, very good bourbon. Find it at your Newfoundland Labrador liquor store.
Not a sponsor.
And not a sponsor, but just a happy customer. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, and I was not falling back asleep. So I finally got out of bed, and I just thought, well, what am I going to do? Okay, one of the simplest techniques is to start writing. So I took up my notebook, and I just started writing. I set a timer for 15 minutes. I said, I'm going to write for 15 minutes, and I have no idea what's going to come out. And what started coming out was just like a recap of what happened. This is what I remember, how those 10 frames happened. And then the timer yelled at me, and I said, no, I have more to say. So I just kept writing. And I figured, well, I'll just keep going until I have an insight. So I just kept describing what happened, and I was writing some things that were, maybe a bit hopeful, maybe a bit critical, but neutral critical, not you asshole, you're terrible, fuck off, but more like, okay, you didn't do this well, you didn't do this well. And I finally then I started laughing. And I wrote, I escaped the situation instead of recentering. And I circled it. And I went to sleep. That was what I needed. And I needed 30 minutes of just writing about what happened, just the facts, to then gradually get to the point of, oh shit, I'm guessing that's what happened. I was going through all the motions, but I wasn't actually recentering. I wasn't actually refocusing. I was using it as a way to escape the horror of what I was going through at the moment. Very, very mild dissociation. Just I'm out of here. And then I looked back and I thought, well, no shit that I started pacing. My body was literally saying, get me the fuck out of here. But then I had to finish the game. So I kept going to I literally went to the sign that says, take off your shoes here. And then I'm like, nope, I have to go back and bowl. Nah, fuck it. I want to go out of here. No, I have to go back and bowl. And I did that for 10 minutes and got nowhere. It really was because I didn't have the presence of mind to use the box breathing, to to refocus myself. I was literally just, let's get out of this, and then I'll go and I'll throw my 3 balls of frame, because that's apparently what I do now, and I will just get through it.
It's much harder to score.
Yeah, it's apparently the most you can do is 150, and even if you get a strike, it goes down to 138. So that's what I learned from that whole situation, was that the sleepwalking is no longer a mystery. At least one way in which this sleepwalking, like one explanation for this sleepwalking feeling, is I'm clinging to the routines, hoping they'll work like magic, instead of remembering what the routines are for. The routines are for focusing, centering, the deep breathing, all that stuff. The routines are not useful in and of themselves. They are there as reminders to get ready for the next shot. This is my show. This is it. I'm ready. Breathe, focus, relax, throw the ball. And
Throw with confidence.
Right.
Not with
throw
fear.
with confidence, not with fear.
Hey, trademark, or
Beautiful.
whatever, something pending.
It's yours. We got
it. So, and that's what makes me so hopeful, and I'm going to be in Calgary in 3 weeks, and we're going to see what happens.
Love it. Love it.
I think it's something that's really big, because even though we've talked about my little circle, the final little part of that loop is evaluating, right? We need to evaluate what went well is the most important thing, is what went well. And we put that ego aside for a second, because that's something that I think we all can benefit from doing. It doesn't matter who you are. There is an ego that exists somewhere. Some are large, some are small. But until we make friends with that ego and understand its purpose, we're not able to actually be like, okay, we're going to put this aside for a second, evaluate what happened, what went wrong, what can I do to implement changes in the future, and carry on. Because it's something that's really easy to hold on to and have it be a weight that holds us down, that holds us back. Oh, remember that time I shit the bed and missed a cut last time? It starts shaking that confidence. And it was one bad game, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is so, it's human nature to hold on to those little nuggets of shittiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
We say all the time, it's a common analogy. If someone gave you $100, you'd be pretty happy. If someone stole one of those dollars, you're not going to piss away those $99. Like, you still have $99, right? So why is it that we allow those one bad games out of however many, one bad showing, ruin the rest of our $99, right? So we have that moment of reflection, we implement those strategies, and we carry the fuck on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best that we can do. That's what we have control over. And that's how we cultivate that confidence, because fuck that. I had one bad game. I'll move on. I know what I'm good at. I know that I can do this. Carry on.
You got it. Got it. And I think that just sums up everything we've talked about today.
Absolutely.
You said it there, Meagan.
Yeah,
it's almost like I've talked about this before.
Yeah. All I can say is, let's go. Let's go, Autumn Open.
Go.
I'm ready. I'm already there.
Let's go.
So thanks again, Meagan, for joining us and swapping the tables here on the guests.
Thanks for asking me.
And it was a pleasure. We got pretty deep into a lot of things that can help a lot of bowlers, including myself, JB. And it's been a pleasure sharing your thoughts with all of us. Thank you.
No, thank you
With
so
that
much.
said,
and it's actually just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So
can't
everyone
wait till
go
the next
home and
one.
do some homework.
All right, JB, when you bowl that 450, we're gonna ask you the same questions. Okay, how'd you do it? Rock and roll. All right, everybody, we hit the hour. Appreciate everybody again coming out for Pinpals. Lyle's gone on to prepare for a trip. He's going to be on the weekend. He's getting camp ready up in Sudbury, so he had to step off a bit early there, but he'll be making sure to join us next time. Until then, we'll see you around. Peace.
See you later, friends.
Pals.
Woo, Pinpals.